5, 6, 7, 8.
Hi EXers, welcome to the EX Podcast episode number 12. This is your host, Stefan Vincent. I've started this podcast because I believe that companies have to think of themselves as employment brands if they hope to attract and retain talent. This podcast brings a different lens to the employee experience, a brand and customer experience angle rather than a traditional HR angle. Our guests, all thought leaders and disruptors in the EX space in their own way, come to this show to debate, discuss, and share best practices on the key components that foster employee engagement and strengthen company culture, and also to spark the conversation on how to create positive employee experiences. Now let's be real, employee disengagement is a big issue. Only 30% of employees worldwide feel engaged at work, and 20% declare they just don't give a crap about their work. The other 50% are in the twilight zone of engagement, not fully engaged, not completely switched off either. There's not much companies can do with the 20% paycheck suckers who just show up at work because they have to in order to collect their dues. Instead, companies should focus on the 50% of employees semi-engaged. That's where companies can make a difference and impact their bottom line. Here, our guests share with you how we can make it happen together. Today's guest is Bill Neese, Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Paycor. Paycor is a cloud tech company that provides a new level of personal, proactive customer service to small and medium-sized organizations in need of HR and payroll technology. The company is headquartered in Cincinnati and has been growing at a very fast pace. Today with Bill, we will learn about the main challenges talent acquisition is facing nowadays. What's the place of technology and data in talent acquisition? How to build a successful TA program? And how talent acquisition strategy and tactics are similar to marketing strategy and tactics, but also what the nuances are. This episode is brought to you by Fusion Alliance. Fusion Alliance delivers holistic solutions fusing together data, digital, and technology to redefine customer experiences and move your ideas to execution. That's why business across multiple industries have relied on Fusion's expertise and partnership for over 25 years. For more information, visit www.fusionalliance.com. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you get a chance, please make sure to review the podcast on iTunes. You can open the iTunes app and type in Stefan Vincent or EX Podcast and you will find us there. And last thing, if you want to send me feedback, suggestions for future topics or guests, you can reach me at svincent@exsummit.com or on Twitter at @EX_summit. All right, let's get to it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the EX Podcast. Today's guest is Bill Neese, Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Paycor. Paycor provides small and medium-sized companies with intuitive, cloud-based software that enables businesses to be more efficient and to make smarter decisions about their people and processes. Bill, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Tell us about your role and what Paycor does exactly.
So first, let's start with Paycor. Paycor is a SaaS-based, fully unified human capital management technology with a suite of products from timekeeping and attendance to payroll to applicant tracking to hiring to onboarding to analytics. So kind of that fully unified HR platform, soup to nuts. We're headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, with about 1,500 associates spread across 33 U.S. locations, and we're rapidly growing, anywhere from 25 to 30% annually.
Wow.
As far as my responsibility goes, I'm the head of talent acquisition, and I lead the soup to nuts process for all things hiring, which include sourcing, interviewing, candidate experience, workforce planning, analytics, you name it. We touch it within our group. And at Paycor, we have a fully centralized talent acquisition team where the managers, the recruiters, the coordinators are aligned to specific business functions. So a sales recruiter is a sales recruiter, a client services recruiter is a client services recruiter, and so on.
All right. Well, and since Paycor is growing rapidly, I'm sure that you and your team are very busy. And I'm sure that you experience some of the challenges that I'd like to focus on today. But if you could give us an idea of what are the biggest challenges organizations are facing today in talent acquisition?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we're in the midst of an incredibly tight labor market. And the majority of companies out there are fishing in the same pool with the same tools and a similar process. And, some companies are still relying heavily on the post and pray methodology while sending all sourcing communication emails. However, I think it's all continuing to evolve. It's all about establishing the talent acquisition function, the right people, the right process, the right technology, all about driving an exceptional candidate experience while also leveraging data to drive leading indicators. In the past, talent acquisition wasn't seen as kind of that workforce planning type function or even a component of the workforce planning type function. And over the last few years, in addition to that, we're being seen as more of a sales and marketing function because everything and anything is predicated upon driving an exceptional candidate experience. The companies that crack that code are going to be the ones that are hiring the top talent.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that leads me to another question as well. So you talked about the similarity between talent acquisition and basically marketing strategy. When it comes to talent acquisition, is an employer brand a real differentiator? And how should companies embrace that sort of mindset of marketing strategy, brand strategy, and talent acquisition altogether?
Yeah, so without question, each organization needs to understand their employee value proposition and what their go-to marketed candidate sourcing and communication strategy is. You obviously want your desired employee value proposition to match your company's perceived employee value proposition along with the external perceived employee value proposition. Your employer brand, doesn't just start and stop with your career page and collateral. It's also differentiated in your written and verbal communication, the interview process and interview experience. And, as candidates are entering and exiting your process, if you will, you want all candidates to want you. And even the ones that you're not proceeding forward with, you want them to feel bummed about not obtaining a role and leveraging them just as a marketing organization would, leveraging them as ambassadors, when they're out there talking to other potential candidates about your company. The talent acquisition function has definitely evolved over the last few years, with some companies actually perceiving talent acquisition as that sales and marketing function because, we're leveraging intentional messaging. We're leveraging drip campaign functionality. We're A/B testing subject lines in our drip campaign functionality. We're leveraging technology that informs us when an email's been opened so we can place that cold call on the back end. We're leveraging technology to organize our talent communities, et cetera. So we look at the candidate funnels as similar to how a marketing team looks at their marketing funnel. So I believe from a TA or talent acquisition through sales and marketing, the functions are extremely similar, especially nowadays.
When you run campaigns on the TA side, do you guys have marketers on your team? Do you have different profiles or backgrounds to run those campaigns? How does it work?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we have a recruitment marketing strategist that's on our team that looks at a key set of KPIs that lend to the recruitment marketing function. Each recruiter on our team is responsible for their pipeline, if you will. So they're going to be communicating. A sales recruiter is out there communicating with their sales recruiting pipeline, and we organize it within 3 or 4 different buckets. We're communicating out there on a monthly, quarterly, or even weekly basis, depending upon what bucket candidate falls in. But we're organizing like sales recruiting, and somebody that wants us, but might not just be right for them just yet. Somebody that we want that feels that we're not right for them just yet, and somebody that's a little bit too green that we've got to stay in contact with from here on out. And that drives the type of communication and how often you're going to be communicating with them. That drives the verbiage and the notes and the calls that you're putting into them. That drives the workflow that you're leveraging for those individuals in your drip campaign functionality. So just a little bit of insight there.
So let's go a bit deeper into this conversation. Do you build a candidate funnel the same way that you build a sales and marketing funnel?
It's extremely similar. From the top end of the funnel. So let me back up. We run optimized candidate funnels similar to how a sales or marketing organization might look at leads. So we know at the top, so a quota carrying sales position, we know at the top of the funnel how many cold calls, intentional messages, drip campaign emails that it's going to take to drive them to application, what we call an outbound lead. We know how many of those applications it's going to drive to a first phone interview to on-site to final to offer, etc. So we have the data that drives the predictability of what it takes to make each hire, let's say for a quota-carrying sales individual. Based on that data, we also can understand what each recruiter or like a salesperson's capacity is. So if their target is or capacity is 4 quota-carrying sales hires per month, and we know what the pipeline looks like to get to one start, we can articulate and drive out our individual recruiter capacity on each recruiter scorecard so they know in any given week, month, quarter, twice a year, annually, where they need to be hitting from a productivity perspective. And we can drive leading indicators from there, which is similar to what, a sales and marketing function does also.
Yeah. Is there a right balance between inbound and outbound recruiting in your experience? From your experience?
Yeah, so, a couple things there. I think it always depends upon the type of position you're recruiting, right? So if it's a high volume, entry level, below management role, post and pray along with job aggregators have their place. If it's a skilled position in this tight labor market, post and pray might be throwing money out the window.
Yeah.
Tough to fill positions, in my opinion, require a surgical, consistent process that leverages technology and exceptional communication touch points throughout the process. Without that, you're definitely missing on the bulk of top talent out there.
So let's back up a little bit. What type of strategy a business should focus on to drive a successful talent acquisition program?
Yeah, so I think first you back all the way up and you say let's translate the verbiage that talent acquisition uses. So back in traditional talent acquisition verbiage and start to utilize the verbiage that the business uses. So, i.e., if sales and client services utilize verbiage like inbound and outbound funnel-specific verbiage, translate your talent acquisition verbiage to match there. So, outbound would equal proactive sourcing candidates that are funneling in. Inbound would equal post and pray applications that's coming in. Instead of initial phone screen, it's an FTI, a first-time interview, similar to a sales first-time appointment. So translate the verbiage that the function's utilizing in order to articulate your productivity at any given point in time. And I think that helps the function capture where you're at, versus where they're looking to be at any given point in time. I think talent acquisition's also heavily anchored around what's possible. So some talent acquisition functions continue to intake all the requisitions. So a talent acquisition leader might be sitting there and there might be 15 new requisitions coming in their high growth organization, and the business just keeps tossing requisitions at them and their team without them taking a step back and saying, hey, articulating what's possible. So thanks for giving me all these requisitions. It's going to take this amount of time. Our capacity is X. Here's what the plan looks like. I think a lot of talent acquisitions team just sits there and allows themselves to be, requisitions thrown at them without having a plan to articulate. However, I think there's a lot of companies that I've spoke with, and we do the same thing, that take a step back, and talent acquisition is built on the foundation of data and planning. So first and foremost, understanding what you're capable of delivering, from a recruiting capacity perspective for a recruiter. Partnering with the business in order to provide multiple options with timing and costs for solving their forecasted headcount. And I think a great TA function sits with the business. They evaluate their forecast from a net adds, from turnover, internal mobility, and they match it up with recruiting capacity. So if you think of an XY plot chart, one is capacity, one is demanded hires. And the function lets the business know, is there a surplus between recruiting capacity versus predictive demand, or is there a gap between recruiting capacity and predictive demand? And if there's a gap, providing that function with additional options as it relates to timing and cost, to getting the talent acquisition team ramped up in order to support that aggressive growth. That being said, not all companies are out there growing 10, 20, 30, 40% a year. But I think recruiting capacity versus forecasted headcount and demand is kind of one of the most important planning tools or resources or data points you can leverage while partnering with the business.
Right. Obviously, data has become more prominent in talent acquisition. Just to take the example of Paycor, what's the place of technology and data within your company when it comes to TA?
Yeah, I think it's the lifeblood of talent acquisition function, especially in 2017. It's all from establishing and implementing an applicant tracking system with strong workflows, to leveraging drip campaign functionality, to leveraging talent communities, to utilizing social media job post functionality to individual networks and LinkedIn, straight from your ATS, to focusing on email update and extraction technology. So you're not just sitting there sending emails, you're utilizing like an email hunter or connectifier where it's a plug in or bolt on to your LIR license. You hit the button and it gives you their personal or professional email address. All that technology and all those things I just mentioned drives data that helps build our recruiting capacity versus forecasted headcount demand plans. And then that takes it one step further, and that helps you drive your optimized candidate funnels that we talked about a little bit ago. You take that one step further, that helps drive the recruiter scorecards and the word picture so that talent acquisition function can manage the productivity of their team.
To make the parallel between TA and, let's say, marketing, the ATS is the equivalent of a CRM, or is it in addition to a CRM that you guys are using as well? And when it comes to email marketing, do you guys use a typical marketing automation platform such as Marketo, HubSpot, or are there specific tools for recruiting?
Yeah, so our applicant tracking system, which we own, we acquired Newton Applicant Tracking about 18 months ago. It's much more than your traditional CRM. It's the soup to nuts applicant tracking system, from sourcing to candidate intake, setting the workflows, ensuring that the candidates are appropriately being placed in those workflows at any given point in time, to driving candidate experience, to updating candidates where they're at in a timely manner on a regular basis, to driving content marketing, collateral, to driving digital offers and with DocuSign technology. It's kind of the soup to nuts one-stop shop for your system that you can leverage CRM type functionality in it to help build your talent communities. The next part of your question is, what do we use from a recruitment marketing perspective, we leverage outreach.io to integrate with Newton, which is our applicant tracking system. And the outreach drip campaign functionality is updated on a regular basis. We, as I mentioned before, group individuals into buckets of how we want to designate them within a talent community. We A/B test subject lines to see what the best verbiage is to move a particular section of candidates forward. And we're hoping at some point here in the future we can build an algorithm around the body, the verbiage in the body of the email to see what translates best to candidates also. So as the system or the AI front of the technology would say, it looks like option number 2 of verbiage is working the best, and automatically switch that verbiage over to on a particular campaign based on a recent campaign where we use 2 or 3 different types of verbiage.
Talent acquisition is very competitive, especially when it comes to recruiting top talents. What would be the important rules to follow, in your opinion, to create a positive candidate engagement and positive candidates experience?
So I think it's a really a couple things. Provide full transparency every step of the way. A lot of people say it, but it's tough, and you got to be nitty gritty to be able to do it. Keeping the candidates updated every step of the way. Creating a process to differentiate something from others, and that can be as simple as a candidate walking through the door and you have a leather bound binder or a nice folder or some type of touch to be able to hand to them, along with a printed out version of the day's schedule. You take that one step further and you get a high level executive ready to convert to an offer, and you send them. They're inviting their family in to take a look at the city over a weekend, and you send them a nice custom gift basket for Cincinnati, with some Cincinnati Reds tickets, some Cincinnati Phillies, some Cincinnati wine, and a Bengals. All about personalizing the candidate experience. Making sure that we or all companies treat all candidates like they're gold, because they are. Ensuring that candidate knows where they stand. They've got a good understanding of the offering, the opportunity in the process, what that looks like. And then you back away from that and say, okay, from a candidate experience perspective, you drive a great candidate experience from a interview process, but then there's also a part of candidate experience of what happens if you're not proceeding with them in the process. And you've got to set the stage to make sure you have good lock and step process to disposition candidates. So making sure all candidates that have received a phone interview at minimum have a phone call from the recruiter talking to them about why they're not proceeding, additional future opportunities, things that they may have potentially done different in the process. Then you take that one step further and you say, okay, if a candidate hasn't even interviewed with the company, there should also be a workflow that at minimum every candidate should recruit or should receive what looks like, personalized email. And so they know that they're dispositioned and we're not, proceeding down the pipeline with them. I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints of candidates across the globe is they don't know where they stand. They don't know what the process looks like. They applied to the job and they never heard back. And you have at the bare minimum, a good applicant tracking system. You can solve a lot of those issues with, good standardized workflows.
You mean that you can easily automate some of the interactions and responses from the company to the candidates? Is it what you're saying?
Yeah, you can automate on the very back end, individuals that you didn't speak with, and drive some personal or intentional messaging there. You can automate reminders. So if you did interview the individual, that you're definitely placing a calling to them and dispositioning them and giving them some advice, one way or another. The applicant tracking system can easily help with all of that.
Let's go a bit deeper into the technology topic. there are new technologies coming up, such as AI or chatbots that allow more of a personalized experience. Have you looked at this? Have you tested it yet?
Yeah, we're constantly testing new technologies, and one of the things I'm most excited about in evaluating is where an organization has a high volume or a high number of, let's call it, entry-level positions, where post and pray or a job aggregator with a sponsored job mentality might be good for that type of position, and you're going to get a high number of resumes coming in. There's technology out there on the AI front that has can build an algorithm for your company and move or individuals to the top based on their background and or responses might have a higher success rate at the organization. So if you get 1,000 resumes, it's almost impossible for a recruiter, especially if they're working multiple roles, to review all 1,000 resumes. However, there's some technology out there right now that we're evaluating that can take a look at those resumes and narrow them down to the top 5 or 10% based on the individual's background and what translates a background into being a successful employee of the organization. So yeah, technology is definitely one of our favorite topics here, and we're constantly evaluating as we move forward.
One of the key process to be able to develop a true talent acquisition strategy and understand what are the different steps, the different touch points of a candidate with a company throughout the entire interview or job application journey is to really understand how those candidates interact with the company in the process. Have you guys, or did you guys do a candidate or an employee journey map before putting together this entire program?
Yeah, so a couple of things right there, and this kind of lends into whether it's millennials or very experienced individuals. We're always looking at embedding a more consistent, accelerated career path into our discussion in the interview process. That's fairly common across our interview process, not just focused on millennials. And we like to ensure that our verbiage is synced up in order to provide our candidates with the most appropriate way of describing what their career path might look like coming into this organization from day 1 through year 5. I think that's something that organizations some do a very good job with, and others might not be to that point yet in terms of documenting and developing and describing career paths to the candidates that are applying to their challenging positions in the organization.
Why is that?
In terms of why they might not be to that point,
right.
There's a lot of organizations out there that don't have a fully centralized talent acquisition team that might be an HR generalist responsible for talent acquisition, employee benefits, and employee relations in a 200-person manufacturing facility, which just may not have the time to sit there and create career paths by mainstream position. There just might not be enough time or dedication to HR in that organization to be able to do so. And then maybe you look at the other side of the coin, and it might be an individual that is in a centralized talent acquisition function where they just might not have that knowledge or experience being able to do that, and might need somebody to, an article or a podcast or something like that to mention that, to kind of spark that interest or idea.
Millennials are now a large part of the workforce. Do you guys at Paycor approach millennials recruiting differently than Gen X or boomers?
Yeah, so slightly. We embed, it goes back to that career pathing. We embed a more consistent, accelerated career pathing as a discussion point in the interview process for millennials. Now, I mentioned that's fairly common across our interview process. However, in some of those roles that where we're speaking with millennials, we look at accelerated career paths to really get them excited. It might be 0 to 12 months, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, before they're making their first, move in the organization. We also like to ensure our verbiage is synced up in order to provide us with the best shot at attracting them. We want to ensure we have a knowledgeable early career recruiter that understands millennials and they're aligned to the millennial-based positions and can speak their language. To answer your question, we slightly altered the process in order to, attract millennials a little bit differently from a recruiting perspective.
You launched a new careers page a few months ago. Am I correct?
Yes.
At a high level, what was the process to get through that change? First of all, why did you decide to make a change, and what was the process to get to what is your current careers page?
Yeah, so the reason for it is we were kind of stuck in a Web 1.0 type careers page, if you will, with basic information that was integrated with their ATS. However, there wasn't a lot of digital content on the page, and it didn't segment the different types of positions candidates might be going to a web page and looking for. The rest of our web page across Paycor had been updated to kind of a Web 2.0 type mentality. So we made the conscious decision to add the dollars in the budget to upgrade it. We have provided the website. Now when you come to it, you can take a very quick look at the different functions across Paycor and understand the differences. You can look at the mainstream jobs and opportunities within a 1 or 2 click touch approach. You can take a look at the career path that you might move from one function to the other or through an entire function. We now have, experienced early career and college recruiting kind of segmented out. So if an individual from a career fair or a college wants to take a look at us, it's, 1 or 2 clicks down into the website. I mentioned upgrading to kind of that Web 2.0 type look, feel, scroll mentality. We've also added quite a bit of digital content to there, so individuals through videos can really understand a real life picture of potentially what it's like to work for Paycor.
It's important to set expectations up front, right?
Most definitely.
Let's switch for a few minutes to the employee side. We talk a lot about personal branding. It's been a buzzword for years and years now. How important, or is it important in the recruiting process to have a strong personal brand?
But most definitely. The personal brand is the candidate. I guess the same could be said for the recruiter's personal brand that's reaching out to the candidate, but the personal brand is the candidate. The candidates, if I'm a candidate, I want to ensure that I have a clean social media presence, that my LinkedIn profile is on point, and that I'm effective in communicating my ability and career results through leveraging verbs in terms of what I've accomplished in my LinkedIn profile and resume versus just documenting responsibilities. I think the majority of individuals out there understand that, but I think there's still a section of individuals that are still trying to come along with that, i.e. they might not, or they might be adverse to putting their profile up on LinkedIn, or they're only putting a partial profile up on LinkedIn. That's absolutely your brand. You want to treat your whether it's your Twitter or your LinkedIn or your Facebook or whatever the case is, you want to treat it as understanding that individuals and companies are out there looking at that info, and you want to portray a successful professional individual.
What are the big don'ts that candidates shouldn't show?
So I think, first and foremost, on your LinkedIn picture, making sure you have a kind of a good headshot right there. I think people get creative out there, with different types of pictures. I just recommend a very nice, clean headshot. Within the overview and the responsibilities, if I'm them, I'd treat that like a resume, demonstrating what they've accomplished, the cause and effect that they've had in their career for their organizations, where they've saved time on process or money or whatever the case is, and making sure they spend just as much time on their LinkedIn profile as they do their resume, and taking a look at their entire kind of social media presence and making sure it's kind of clean, clear, and consistent. Because if it's out there on the web, somebody's definitely going to find it.
Let's switch back to the employer side now. When I talk, and I've experienced it myself as well, when I talk to people looking for new opportunities, one thing that tick them off is the fact that sometimes you ask to upload your resume, and after you do that, you still have to go through all the same fields or form to fill out with the exact same information that is on your resume. Why is that? Why can't companies just have a software that is going to pull all this information from a PDF or Word document into a form where you don't have to duplicate the work?
It's a great question. So there's applicant tracking systems similar to what our applicant tracking system does that parses the information. So recruiter can, click insert, the resume goes through either PDF or a Word doc or whatever the case is, and it parses that information into the application online as they're applying to a role. However, I'm a big proponent of, up front, outside of a resume, you don't need a whole lot more from the candidate. Don't make the process so cumbersome that it turns the candidate away. If you need additional information, push that towards the latter part of the process where you have them on the hook. They're excited and you're excited from the process perspective. But applicant tracking system should be making majority of companies out there process incredibly easy to apply within a matter of a minute or two.
As we said earlier, talent acquisition is very competitive. Candidates have to wow a recruiting manager to get a job offer, but companies have to wow top candidates as well. How do you close on candidates who may have multiple offers, and what would be the trigger to make them move to Paycor?
Yeah, so we see this every single day. I don't know if there's a day that goes by where we're not talking to a candidate that has multiple offers, whether it's product and IT and it's an engineer, or it's somebody in client services on implementation, or if it's a quota-carrying seller in our sales group. We operate under the process of, similar to sales and marketing. Always be closing the candidates each step of the process. We definitely don't like to have any surprises. It doesn't help the candidate or the company if there's surprises that pop up along the way. And we attempt to build two-way relationships from the get-go. We try to have an independent take on the individual's career and provide guidance as to what's best for them versus just trying to, slap them into a position in the organization that it's not right for them, they're going to turn over. If our opportunity is not right, we want to maintain that long-term relationship with them in case there is a time in the future where their opportunity might be right for them. Or if it's not going to be and they just might not be a fit for the organization, we still want to maintain that relationship with them. That's an individual that can refer individuals to us. We can refer individuals to them, and so on.
We've made a lot of parallel between the marketing, business, and the recruiting talent acquisition sides. Obviously, on the marketing, sales, business side, companies have different products, different services to meet the demands of different market segments. Is it the same on the employee side? Does Paycor have different benefits packages or different ways of putting a offer together based on the candidate profile?
Yeah, it depends. So executive offers, the easy answer there is without question. On all below executive offers, we have what we call a digital offer. So instead of your traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 page Word document that has a lot of different legalese across the document, we have almost what would look like a PowerPoint presentation that's an offer form. And it's really quick. Slide 1, here's your comp, here's your bin, here's your bonus potential, your stock, etc. Number 2, here's info about the team that you'll potentially be working on with some of the projects you could be working on. Here's slide 3, some exciting stuff about Cincinnati. And by the way, as you get a little bit further down in here, if you want to look at the legal jargon, click this link and it'll take you, and you can sign the docs over there. So we leverage kind of a digital offer base or content-based marketing mentality versus just using a Word doc with a lot of legalese info for an offer.
Do you think that the personalization of the employee experience from the recruiting process to the exit interview or exit process has become more and more important? Are we talking more about truly personalization of the experience? What's your take, or what's your opinion of where that trend is going?
Well, the trend is definitely going into connectivity across from application through offboarding, if you will. And there's a few reasons for it. One, it's all about candidate and employee experience. But two, there's a lot of data within that time frame that you can capture to help make better decisions for the employee and for the organization going forward. I think it's a small percentage of organizations right now that are advanced in their technology of where they can look at from source of application all the way through the employee exiting in organization. However, there's some very telling and insightful information that you can kind of ascertain while evaluating those data sets.
Okay. Now, at this point in the interview, I like to ask a few personal questions so that our audience get to know our guest a bit more intimately. What makes you laugh and why?
Sorry, come again?
Oh yeah, what makes you laugh and why?
In terms of talent acquisition or life in general?
Just in general in life. What makes you laugh, or what makes you giggle, or what makes you happy?
Yeah. So I'm a family guy. I have a couple kids. One, 5.5 years old, and the other one going to be 2 here shortly. So always about being outdoors with my family, my kids, my wife. Whether it's swimming, riding horses, teaching my daughter how to fish right now. Being at sporting events, have a big love for, almost an obsession for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And my family's definitely interested in that stuff too. So family and being outdoors is definitely my love. No question about that.
What makes you cry?
Yeah, probably the same thing. Seeing my child hurting, from being at school and as simple as somebody, playing with them and them having a bad day, or something that's happened in the family where they unfortunately are not doing so well. Family and is foremost with me. It's kind of what revs my engine, and all my emotions are wrapped up in that for sure.
Good. What's your favorite food?
Pizza. Yeah, that's an easy one. Doesn't matter what kind of pizza you throw at me. I'll partake. Anything from a Totino's 99-cent pizza to being out in Chicago getting some delicious deep dish pizza. I love to try all different kinds of pizzas, and then secondary would be cheeseburgers. Love to try new ones. The best cheeseburger in the world is a little tiny 8-seat shop in Urbana, Ohio called Cravel's. They're 60 cents a burger. They're deep fried in grease. They're absolutely delicious. But you better get there early or wait, because there's only 6 or 8 chairs in that little small mom and pop restaurant in Urbana, Ohio.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Yeah, probably. This is going to sound a little strange, but Jerry Maguire. One reason or another, I've always leaned towards that. I think because of a little bit of the love story along with tying in sports. I think that's great. And then Good Will Hunting is another one of my favorites, along with the movie Rounders. So that'd probably because of the poker playing and kind of the life story there. I think those would probably be my top three.
Those are good ones, yeah. Is there a way for our listeners to follow you and Paycor on social media?
Yeah, definitely. They can look me up at Twitter at NEESEWJ. Also very active on LinkedIn, even more active than I am on Twitter. Or feel free to connect with me on Facebook. Also, any of those three kind of social media outlets.
Oh, and Paycor's website is paycor.com.
That's it.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you for being with us today. I know you're a very busy guy, so I appreciate your time today with us.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the EX Podcast. If you want to learn more, visit our website at expodcast.com. If you want to find out more about our next conferences, go to exsummit.com. Finally, you can also find my manifesto on business to employee or B2E branding at b2ebranding.co. See you next week.